is the one thing that you would do anything to avoid? Maybe there's more than one thing. Whatever that is, whatever you would sacrifice everything for, whatever you would give it all up in order to get this one thing or to avoid losing this one thing, whatever that is, you are a slave to that. Now that's kind of harsh. We don't want to be a slave. And yet, really, if there is something that we would sacrifice everything for, well, we're sort of a slave to that. Our first reading today from the letter to the Hebrews at Mass reminds us that Jesus came and entered the fullness of our human condition. He understands everything. He understands that there are certain things that as humans, well, we really do feel like we'd sacrifice everything. And some of those aren't bad. Like maybe we would be willing to sacrifice everything for our kids, or we think of those who serve in the military who are willing to sacrifice everything for the good of the country. So it's not always bad, but there can be a negative. And that's what the letter to the Hebrews calls our attention to today, when it reminds us that Satan came with death to destroy the life of God in us. And so the one who has the power of death, that is the devil, Jesus came so that he might free those who through fear of death had been subject to slavery all their life. Well, if there's one thing that we fear more than anything, or fear to lose, well, it'd be death. We're afraid of death. We're afraid of losing our life. I think most people would probably say, well, if there's one thing that I would put above all else, I mean, I'm willing to sacrifice everything short of something that would kill me. Now, to the extent then that we would be willing to sacrifice things that should be better than even our life, well, then we've got our priorities wrong. What would we put ahead of our life? Those are the things that in the end really matter. What do you value more even than your own life? Well, the real trick of Christianity, the real good news, is that death really isn't the thing that we should fear more than anything. Prior to the coming of Jesus, sure, that might have been true. But notice that Jesus, in entering into our human suffering, entering even into our death, has shown us that there is something greater than even our life in this world. And that is, of course, the eternal life with God. For this reason, the letter to the Hebrews can tell us today that Jesus entered into everything that we have, and that he even was tested through what he suffered. And because of this, he is able to help those who are being tested. Jesus himself was tested with the question, are you willing to lay down your life? Are you willing to enter into death, even the most horrific of deaths, death on the cross? Do you trust God enough to do this? And of course, in this way, Jesus was tested, and really tested, as we see on the night before he died. Even he prayed, Lord, if it's possible, let this cup of suffering and death pass. If there's some other way, let's do it that way. Jesus was tested, and he passed the test, because ultimately he said, Father, not my will, but yours be done. And so he accepted even death because he believed and knew that there was something even greater than the life of this world, that there is eternal life. Think how freeing it is, brothers and sisters, to know that death is not the end. Sure, there will be suffering. Death is not easy. Death is scary. But death shouldn't be the greatest thing in this world that we would do anything to avoid. Rather, death is not the end. It's actually the passage to the new beginning of eternal life. It doesn't mean that we should kind of just think of death as nothing and willy-nilly endanger our lives. Certainly not. We need to be prudent, and certainly self-preservation remains one of the great natural instincts in this world. But it's merely a natural instinct. Our supernatural instinct should tell us that we need not fear death in the end. I'm always reminded of the story of the raising of Lazarus from the dead. Jesus famously, after 4 days, raises him from the dead. And this is such a sign that there is more to life than merely preserving this life in the world, that it says that the Jewish leaders actually plotted to kill Lazarus because too many people are believing in Jesus because of him. I like to think, imagine the almost comical scene that would be. We're going to kill Lazarus because too many people are believing him because he's been raised from the dead. Don't we think that Lazarus might think, well, I mean, I've been dead once. Sure, I guess go ahead and kill me. Or how futile it is to think of killing Lazarus when Jesus already raised him from the dead. Here's a clear sign that death has no power. Imagine how freeing that is for Lazarus. I've been dead once. I guess Jesus could raise me again. Well, imagine if we lived all of our lives that way, knowing that, well, I've already died in baptism. Jesus has power over death, so if I die, I guess it's not really the end. I guess I'll just live forever. That's an amazingly powerful message. That is a message that says don't live in slavery or fear of death. Whatever you put highest in this life, including life itself, you're a slave to that. Today, the letter to the Hebrews tells us, don't be a slave. Don't even be a slave to protecting your life in this world. If you know that there's life after this world, and that nothing in this world should come between us and the highest relationship we have, a relationship with God, well, then you're not a slave anymore. You're free. You're really free. So live today, not in fear of anything, but in the freedom of knowing that you are made for eternal life with God. And God bless you.